What is going on with the latest Google update? In fact, multiple Google updates that we had in December 2024. The rollout completed on the 26th, and the results have been quite shocking. And frankly, I'm surprised by the lack of discussion in the SEO community about what's going on. I think largely because most of us have been enjoying a good break, myself included. Maybe there has been discussion and I've just not been aware of it. But a lot of what I'm seeing really does resemble the March update of 2024 and the September 2023 helpful content update, both of which were really severe updates where seemingly quite randomly certain websites, high quality actual businesses, were wiped out overnight. And now more than a year later, that's had a really serious impact on the industry. SEO absolutely still works. I'm seeing success stories all over the place, especially if you've got an actual product and an actual brand. However, it's much more of a minefield. It seems like you can do everything right and then still get wiped out 6 months down the line for seemingly no reason and not know how to fix it. And with December, that's kind of what I'm seeing. Before we go any further, don't forget to click the link below and sign up for my Google Update Survival Guide. If you're on the list, then when the course goes live, there'll be a limited number of free places available. And now the whole point of this course is not about any particular update. It's not a helpful content update fix. It's much more about what I'm going to show you in this video, the kind of steps you can take to go through if you have had a traffic drop. Or maybe you're an agency and you've got multiple clients that are noticing drops. So how can you go through step by step and try and work out what's going on? Because not only can this be extremely valuable to you if your site's been hit, but also as a consultant or an agency owner, obviously there are huge rewards. If a big business was doing really well with SEO and then in just one update they experience a big drop in their traffic and revenue, then whoever is able to get in first and work out exactly the kind of ranking factors that have changed and therefore has a high degree of success in recovering websites, that's obviously extremely valuable. Because before, say they were making 100k a month, now they're only making 20k a month. Even if you can just get them back up to 50k per month, then obviously that's $30,000 a month to them. You'll obviously be rewarded handsomely. So it's no wonder lots of agencies offer so-called update recovery services or penalty recovery services. I'm always a little bit dubious of those, but if you have a framework in place step by step that's going to maximize your chances of finding the kind of changes that have happened and therefore how to fix them, then you could be offering that kind of service ethically and profitably. Now, let's just talk about the headlines. I would say that generally across my portfolio of clients, they've been largely unaffected. This is a perfect example, increasing very nicely month on month. This is in the B2B SaaS niche, which generally is high value and competitive. We can see they did have a bit of a bump after the August update, which then came down again in October. But generally, the long-term trend is looking really good. Now, as 19th of December, that I was noticing the biggest changes, but from this chart, we're really not seeing anything there. Now, 19th of December was specifically a spam update. People get really concerned about link building and the impact of their backlinks in this case. But you can see using our outreach process, the blue line represents all the backlinks we've built. The purple line represents the domain rating, so how much the authority of that website has increased as a result of those backlinks. So before they started with us, they were around 40. Now they're up to 59. So we've been pretty aggressive with this client, building a large volume of links, and yet there's been no impact from this recent spam update. Now here's an example from another client. I generally find my first port of call when I'm assessing how any website is doing, whether it's an update or not, is to go into Ahrefs and use the calendar view. And they've got this really nice feature where they basically just give you an idea, a heat map, of whether in general keywords are going up or down. So we can see the first December update on the 12th, which was the core update, and then the 19th of December spam update. And now what we're looking out for is these really big, deep drops. And obviously lots of red is of course bad. But if anything here, we're seeing far more volatility in November than we did in December. So on the whole, I'd probably argue that generally these updates are doing exactly what they want them to do in terms of improving search quality results, where just on a macro level, my clients, which tend to be big established businesses, are completely untouched, whereas I'm noticing far more volatility in my own projects. So I don't really agree with a lot of the implementation, but as a headline, really interesting that newer sites built with fewer resources seem to be a lot more volatile compared to a big established corporate. Let's not forget the idea of the Google Sandbox was all about an anti-spam measure, where basically it was really difficult to rank in the first 6 months or so with a new blog. And the thinking there was basically if you're a spam site, you're probably not going to stick around for that 6 months to actually find out. So it was like a little testing or probationary period where you've got to have your website for 6 months before you get any traffic. And as anyone in SEO will have experienced, your real gains in traffic tend to come a year or two later. So those people are always wondering, how long does SEO take? You can absolutely get results in weeks and months. I've had Plenty of students in my one-page websites course follow my steps and literally rank a website on page 1 within hours of actually launching it, but generally, on the whole, it's that first 3 to 6 months and then much bigger gains down the line around a year later. So in terms of what we see here, I would be at all surprised if Google was bringing back an age factor as a very simple, blunt way of assessing spam sites versus quality sites, because a site that's a good couple of years old, big and established, is obviously going to be a lot more trustworthy than the load of new sites that have popped up that could be using AI content, fast link building strategies, and more like that. Now, on that note, I'm talking about ranking factors, but actually the spam brain algorithm is actually AI based. So I've heard some speculation and theories that Google is far more relying on these AIs, where it's much more about just delegating the outcome that they want, but not really knowing how the algorithm actually comes to that end. And because of that, you can see that AIs can get into feedback loops, which result in volatility, where it places too much emphasis on a particular factor, and that really skews results. So the current theory is the reason some of these recent updates have been so volatile and so extreme is because that you've got these AIs. They're basically self-serving and almost going off on a tangent. So rather than just looking at the traditional ranking factors where Google will say links are worth this much, keyword density should be this much, it's far more dynamic. And because of that, we're seeing outliers on both sides. Some sites coming up massively, some sites going down massively. And that's one of the benefits I mentioned in my one-page websites course, where these days I'm really taking much more of a portfolio approach, because too many people have doubled down on one authority site, and when that site gets tanked, they've then lost all their income. So the one-page websites method is all about building with minimal resources, just a couple of $100 per site, if that, and then spreading that out across 10 to 15, or in my case, far more websites. And from that, you can quickly identify the winners, which ones are doing really well. Of course, the majority of them don't, but some do. This one, high ticket local service, it only ranks for 7 keywords, and yet just those 7 keywords are getting 42 traffic a month because I'm so high up for those keywords. But this also spreads your risk, and it means when there's an update, you'll probably actually benefit from that period where some sites go up and some go down. And that's exactly what I'm going to show you here. Because what I've experienced is I've actually got 2 websites in the exact same niche and built with the same process. And that's because when you find a good niche, I recommend going in hard. If it's not that competitive and you're ranking with one domain without a lot of work, without a load of backlinks, then you might as well register 10 more of those domains and try and dominate that niche. So this was one of my early winners, was coming up really well, and yet over the last few weeks I've just watched all those rankings disappear almost entirely. So if we look at the calendar, we can see it's constantly going up and up and up. Lots of green in November, lots of green in early December, and then with these 2 Google updates, a lot more red, and it's a deep red as well. So this is when you're probably going to push back and say, well, this is proof that exact match domains don't work, or AI content doesn't work. This minimum viable approach of building a website with limited resources just doesn't. But like I say, I've got another exact match domain in the exact same niche, exact same template. The 2 sites are pretty much identical. The content is still unique. And what do we have here? I'm going through the calendar view. Most of the keywords are actually coming up. So this site definitely didn't rank as high up as the other one, which is why it was on a back burner. It wasn't my priority. But you can see lots of big, valuable keywords are actually coming up. So this really illustrates that randomness we're seeing with recent Google updates. So 2 very similar sites in the same niche, one's been destroyed, one's coming up. I can even take that further in that on this channel, I recently shared an example of just showing how far you can push this technique, where I had an insurance website as an exact match domain. It just had a basic page of optimized content on the homepage, no design at all, really ugly layout. Nothing about it was particularly user-friendly. It was just content optimized on a page with a call to action. Now, a few weeks ago, while it had been at number 2 and 3 for a good few months by that point, a few weeks ago it dropped down to page 2. And I thought, right, I've been asking for this. This is exactly what I deserve. A manual quality rater has gone through and said, this website's terrible. We're going to knock it down a few points. We're not going to de-index it or penalize it. We're just going to push it onto page 2. And yet, in just the last couple of weeks, the updates come around, and suddenly I'm back up into the top 3 again with that website. So 800 searches a month, $4 per click, so pretty valuable traffic, was at number 11, and I'm back on page 1 at number 3. So really difficult to draw conclusions so far. But overall, it really does look like that age, trust, brand, all those things that just make you look like a bigger entity. Because of course, if you are an older website, you're also going to have far more links from different sources, whereas a lot of my portfolio sites, they're very new, they're very small, and they just haven't had that much stuff pointed at them yet. We talk about using local business directories and a press release. But of course, if you've been on the internet for a couple of years, you're going to have attracted all these different links from all over the place. And we also have that time factor to consider. Now, those were two extreme examples, but more generally, this is my legal website. Again, one of the one-page website process examples. So only a few weeks old, jumped up for a load of great queries in the personal injury lawyer space. That's very competitive, very lucrative. And for the main keyword that's actually in the domain name, we got that to position 3. And what we're seeing here is not as extreme as the other example I showed you, where all the keywords had just disappeared, but a lot of them have been knocked down. Not necessarily severely, sometimes quite severely, 20 to 30 places, but it's not a whole lot of difference, especially as this is a new site. They do tend to be very up and down in those early days. And this is more typical of a lot of the results I'm seeing. Not that extreme of one completely gone and one coming up nicely, but just a reduction overall. But again, that doesn't apply to the whole portfolio. In fact, this is another insurance website, brand new, couple of weeks old, and yet this keyword, 700 searches a month, $19 CPC, and that's rocketed up position 60 to 37. So really seeming like luck of the draw in terms of what goes up and what comes down. Now, if you are interested in the one-page websites methodology, we are going to be relaunching the course soon. So if you click the link below, there's a pre-launch sign up there, and loads of the people who've taken this have had great results, have had great feedback. We've had Adam, who put his first site together and then literally overnight ranked at number 3. Cyril says mad stuff, looking to rank for this keyword, only put the site live 2 days ago. And I know Mark, frequent commenter, commented on my last video saying, I can tell you what works for me, and that's your one-page website training, ranking page 1, spot 1 for 3 local keywords. And they do get traffic, and that's in just 5 weeks. And then Anand, who shared in my private mastermind community, fantastic testimonial here. First website, 10 days later, and there's a screenshot there of some great ranking increases. He says, don't buy new courses, just implement SEO Jesus. As is, don't even do customization. His plan works, even if you just implement the basics. Now, one other thing to note, that law firm website, as I shared in a recent case study, was my test case for SEO NEO, where I took the 100 backlinks from local business directories that I built, loaded that into SEO NEO, and it built 100 backlinks to each of them. So it's tiered link building, very powerful, but should be very safe. I'm still agnostic as to whether it works or not, but at least from that particular case, the results were looking really positive. So I had the tool running throughout December, and we can see a lot of green in early December. And while there's a fair bit of red following the update, as I noted earlier, not only did this website rank number 3 for the target keyword, it does also seem to have had some resilience against that Google update. And I'm hearing some reports from colleagues that basically if you can use an automated tool, whether it's Neo, GSA, one of these old school black hat tools, it does seem to help with reinforcing brand. Because what you're building is thousands and thousands of pages all talking about your brand and ultimately linking down to your brand. So going back to what I was saying earlier about diversification, how if there's a site that's been around for many years and they've collected all these backlinks from all over the place, and they seem to have sailed through the update unscathed, then how can we as a new entrant try and get the same effect? And arguably using an automated tool to build these thousands of pages could potentially be the answer. I'm not convinced yet, but be assured I've got more tests running now to see if we can repeat these results, and I'll also be including some of the sites that have dropped to see if we can actually reverse that drop. Does having all these brand mentions and all these brand links really work as a fix to reverse that decline? And this is a focus for Neo as well. They've even got a particular diagram for Rank Your Brand, which they claim is good for reputation management. This is meant to be one of Elias's favorite campaigns, and it's 3 tiers of links all talking about your brand. So big question there, does SEO NEO actually work, and can it help with recovering from the latest update and protect you against future updates? But perhaps a bigger question is, how do you actually set it up correctly? Because it's a big complex tool and there's so much that you can get wrong if you're not careful. So that's why I've got Elias to commit to a call with me. We're going to put together the ultimate step-by-step blueprint for you to follow. I'm also going to grill him on a lot of the particular use cases and how you can benefit from it. And he's basically going to grill me in return and point out everything that I've done wrong in my setup, or could be doing better. For instance, I pushed back before about capture breakers. I spent more than $200 on capture breakers for just one campaign. And yet once I let my credit expire, it kept on building links without them. So I probably lost a lot of the links by not being able to break those captures, but it seems to me that the vast majority of the links still did go through and get placed. So am I committing something really wrong? Time will tell. Now, this has been really popular. I know a lot of people have been chasing me saying when's it coming out. I'm still doing more testing, but I've committed to a call with Elias next week, and that should be the final step to then put that training together. So make sure you're on the list, and I'll also be sharing all my case studies and test cases to try and get a true idea of ROI.